I'm at Hurst Priory. Built in the early to mid 18th century, this country house is in the parish of Belton on the Isle of Axholme. The Priory is a charming and historic award-winning wedding and events venue located in some beautiful grounds. My name's Paul Holloway, and this is the second of two sessions on press release tips. This time we're focusing just on radio. Now, here's an opportunity to stand out. I worked in local radio for over 10 years, and in that time, each week, I would see dozens of press releases. And what really surprised me is how only a tiny percentage of those press releases would send audio with their press release to a radio station. So here's an opportunity to stand out from the crowd. I'm going to tell you what you need to put in your audio clips. And remember that radio stations, just like other forms of media, there's a lot of pressure on the people who are working there in terms of their time. So if you can present information in a format which makes life easier for radio staff, then you're more likely to get coverage. But you still need to ask yourself, is this a newsworthy story, as we mentioned in the last session on general press releases? Using audio means you can capture people's spirit and personality in a way that you can't on the printed page. So if you have a human interest story, somebody talking about how they're doing something in memory of their late father as a fundraiser at your business, you can really try and get some emotion and something that's going to strike a chord with people. Also with celebrities and VIPs, if you can get that individual beforehand to send something across of an event that you're running, then it makes it more interesting. It could be something with a celebrity chef. It could be the manager of the local football team. If you can get them to put something in audio before to send it across, you're more likely to get coverage. Remember, you're still trying to find an angle to make the story as interesting as possible so that the radio station decide that their audience will be interested in your story. So you'll need to create a radio media distribution list. Where do you need to be looking in Lincolnshire? Let's start with BBC Radio Lincolnshire. It is the BBC, of course, so they're not going to run stories that are adverts masquerading as a news story. You need to make sure you've got a strong story to start with, but they are interested in local content. Then there's commercial stations such as Lynx FM and Viking FM. Of course, if you're already advertising at a commercial station, you might want to use that as a little bit of leverage to see if they'd be interested in running your press releases. Remember, there still needs to be a story there. They're not going to give you a free advert. Don't forget to include Greatest Hits Radio. Now, Compass and Rutland have recently transferred over to the Greatest Hits Radio network. That means the radio stations that used to be local are having content that's syndicated from across the country, but they're still required to make sure that they cover local news stories in their bulletins. You'll have to have a strong angle and a strong story to be included, as it may be a regional bulletin, but don't forget to include them in your media distribution lists. And finally, there's community radio stations and podcasts. They might not have the same size audience as the BBC and commercial stations across Lincolnshire, but community stations are a way of connecting with people in your local area. So what makes a radio press release different to a traditional press release? Well, the first thing is length. Nobody's going to read out 300-word press release that you've sent into a local newspaper on a local radio station. It's just not going to happen. You need to condense your story into, say, 50 to 70 words, and then supply a clip of audio that brings your story to life. You need to make sure you're properly introducing the person whose audio you're using, and you need to make sure that they sound relaxed, they're having fun, or there's some gravitas in their voice, some personality. You can use that audio to get across in a way that the printed page really can't. If you are sending information over to a local radio station together with a press release designed for radio and an audio clip, why not include a traditional press release as well that we talked about in the last session? It gives local journalists the opportunity to have a little read through and see if there's anything else they might want to pull out. You could also include a longer piece as well as that clip that they might want to consider clipping. The important thing is, if you're doing the job for a local journalist of giving them the story as best you can, they might want to edit it before they put that on air, but you're more to get coverage if you've done as much of the legwork as you possibly can. So that's the opportunity to stand out from the crowd. Don't forget, when you send your press release, to include photography. All radio stations are working on multimedia platform, and they can include this on their social media feeds, for example. Make sure any photography you send is credited to a photographer if a professional has taken it, and make sure the names of the people who feature in the photography are also listed so that they know who they are. Remember to send your contact details. There is an opportunity, if your story is strong enough, you might get a call back and be invited into the studio to give more details, or maybe even an outside broadcast from your venue. If you're going to get that sort of coverage, it's important to build relationships with key local journalists. We're only probably talking about half a dozen people across Lincolnshire. If you can find their email addresses and build up a relationship and send them only newsworthy stories, they'll see you as a valuable source of information that they can generate content. And remember, all media, whether it's traditional, broadcast or print, everybody is looking for strong content. So thank you very much for listening to both of our sessions on press releases, and I hope you found it interesting and useful.